mom's a high school music teacher, and she went to Western for classical flute, so she was really into classical music. My father's an avid music lover, really into 70s, 60s, 70s music, and he played guitar around the campfire, but really he was the one that brought me to a lot of different festivals and shows throughout my childhood. That inspired me. Really, it was fun to play music, and I started taking lessons when I was 4 or 5 on the piano first, and I learned a lot from a few different teachers. I went through about 7 or 8 different teachers, and what I truly fell in love with was like the act of being able to get better. It's kind of like that mathematical mind of learning a skill, and then you get better and better at it the more you practice. So that really inspired me to want to get into music more, and also just loving the entire environment that surrounds music. So when I would go to a show, you see people dancing, you see people having a good time, and all the cool people in my life were musicians, so that was definitely enticing to want to get into music. Yeah, there probably were some struggles. I think definitely originally going from the classical route, it wasn't really the route that prepares you necessarily as well to being a gigging musician. A lot of classical musicians would be performing with orchestras or possibly in pit bands, which is something I would also be interested in. But definitely when I started with classical piano, that was not something I could go out and play with a band as well. I needed sheet music, I needed to be able to read something. When I got into guitar when I was about 10 years old, that was when I started being able to play my favorite rock, pop, any kind of folk tunes even. And that was when I started to play with a few different bands around my small town. I'm from St. Mary's, Ontario, which is a small town just southwestern Ontario. Not a whole lot of music there, but I got involved with a couple local music studios and played in a few different recitals starting out. And definitely when I got into guitar and I started being able to play in bands and accompany other people, that was what helped me get into the industry as far as starting to play gigs and actually perform in restaurants and bars and all that sort of thing. Yeah, the biggest inspirations were my parents. I already talked about. I'll skip a little bit ahead to talk about one of the people that really inspired me to get professionally into music. In high school, I went to a guitar teacher in Stratford, Ontario, named Earl Filsinger, and he's one of the best guitar players, best guitar teachers I know of in that area of Ontario. And he's, to this day, I've had a lot of different guitar teachers, and I still think that he's been my favorite teacher I've ever had. The way he would take a song that I wanted to learn, let's say I wanted to learn a Jimi Hendrix solo on guitar. And I would learn that. Previous teachers would have just helped me learn that, and then I would play it. But what Earl would do is he would inspire me he would learn the solo that I really wanted to learn, but then take a teaching concept into that and show me how to use that to solo over any sort of song, and take the musical concepts and apply them to any musical situation. So his whole life too is kind of an inspiration to me in that a lot of people that are in the music industry maybe aren't super business minded, maybe don't live the super healthy lifestyle, and he was a guy that has been touring since he's been about 16, 17. Never got into serious drugs. He was always practicing, trying to get better, and he's a very business-minded character in Stratford, and he owns his own studio, he owns some apartments that he rents out, and he's just somebody that I would aspire to be like. So. Tell him about the cowboy. Yeah, my grandpa, so my dad's dad, Bev Camp, aka the Dancing Cowboy. He lives in London, Ontario. He's moved around a lot. He was living in Toronto with his second wife for a while, but then when they parted ways, he moved back to London, where he spent a lot of his younger years. And he just started getting really interested in cowboys. And this was in his mid-60s. And he would watch a lot of YouTube videos because he finally got a laptop, and he would watch old westerns. And he just fell in love with the look of a cowboy, so he bought all this vintage clothing and really tried to do it authentically. And he probably has, I don't even know how many, probably 40 to 60 different like full cowboy outfit kind of things, but they're like classy cowboy. And every day he just goes out and dances. And sometimes he'll go to like 3 or 4 different shows in a day. And pre-COVID, he would be out till like 2 or 3 in the morning every night, and I would probably be asleep at that time. But he's like 72 years old and still out dancing, and everyone in the London music scene knows who Dancing Cowboy is. So that's my career. I do. I definitely, that was something more early on in my career. So probably about like when I started performing some stuff for people at recitals when I was 10 or 11 was definitely when I would feel afraid. I still always get a little bit of those butterflies. It depends who I'm playing with. Like an artist like Rachel Frank-Reiter that I'm playing with for 3 or 4 years. If we're doing a gig in a little restaurant, it doesn't seem to worry me in the slightest because I'm comfortable in those situations. Definitely situations where there's less rehearsal, less prepared musicians I'm playing with, and if I wasn't given the amount of time to prepare properly, I definitely get a little bit more stage fright. But with music, it's just a organic thing that if you keep your ears open and in the moment, when you're performing, you don't really have time to experience stage fright. It's more the before, and then I'm a big analyzer after the fact as well, analyzing how well I did with the performance. But when you're actually up there, and if you're truly trying to be in the moment, there shouldn't be any stage fright, because kind of whatever happens, happens. Yeah, I do, and it's kind of funny. So I'm in a jazz program at Humber, and just jazz in general, if I'm understanding imposter syndrome correctly, jazz, I feel like an imposter when I play jazz, because there are people that have been playing jazz since they have been 4 years old, and that's all they listen to, that's all they play. They are beboppers. Some people call them bop cops if they're people that are like really traditionalist and into bebop. But I kind of got into jazz late high school. So I've really only been playing jazz for about 4 years now. And I would say I really only started playing jazz like 2 years ago, and I still have so much to go in that respect. So when I play indie folk, I play rock, I play these different things outside of school when I'm playing gigs. I definitely feel more in my element, but having to play jazz in front of people that jazz is their thing, I think it's just such an art to playing jazz that I definitely feel like an imposter when I'm playing it. But that is starting to change more and more now, the more I practice and I work on my art. So, yeah. Like musical ideas? Yes. In terms of like business or artistically?
Can't make the scene if you don't have the green.
Artistically.
Artistically?
No.
Yeah, like artistic ideas, I think it's, and this is definitely a big jazz way of thinking, it's the emulation, and then you innovate after that. So if I'm ever feeling in a rut and I don't feel creative and I don't have ideas, I just go back and listen to a lot of different artists. And this doesn't mean that I have to copy them exactly, because nobody ever wants you, unless you're in like a high profile cover band gig that plays weddings where they want to hear Hit Me With Your Best Shot and hear it exactly like the original. Generally, you would want to listen to older artists. Maybe I pick Grant Green from the 60s recording, and listen to that and be like, oh, I really like the way that he grooves in this recording. I don't like the way his guitar sounds, I don't like the notes he's playing, but I like the way he grooves. So then I can take that idea of grooving and take that into the funk song that I'm playing on right now if I'm feeling stale with my own regular playing. So getting inspiration from the greats is really helpful.
Is it original?
No. I like playing everything I play. Okay, I'm just trying to think of a song that I really hated playing. All right. I might just do Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Because, I don't know, it's kind of funny that I play that, because I'm not really a rock guitar player. But.
What do you play for yourself?
Does that make you just want to move?
Perfect.